Hey guys, welcome to this new video. In today's video, we want to give you our perspective about 2022. But before that, we want to exchange with you a little bit about what happened in Vietnam in 2021. So I have Vin with me today to discuss about that and to get both perspectives about the situation here. So how was 2020 Vin for you?
Boy, Guillaume, I think 2021 was a year to forget, I think, across the world and even Vietnam, because the COVID hit the worst around spring of 2021, and then we had visa problems too. So we'll talk a bit about that today.
Yeah, so to summarize, we got in the beginning of the year an outbreak, so the Delta variant entering Vietnam. So, you know, the government started to shake a little bit. We got at the same time some visa problems. So basically, all the visa that we could extend until now, they start to be a little bit more difficult, right?
Right.
So in June this year, many foreigners had to leave the country. And sometimes they didn't really want it. Some families lived here for years. Some people were still here on business visa. Some people were working here, not always in proper and legit situation. So that was just before the big lockdown.
Yeah, so I think from the beginning, the things started to fall apart around late April. If you remember, there was that national holiday, April 30th, and there was about 10 days or 2 weeks where people domestically flew to Dalat, to Phu Quoc, to all of the major cities for tourism. Mm-hmm. And then after that, that's when the Delta variant took hold in Vietnam, and things got really bad, if you recall.
Yeah, so it was the exact things that happened. And after we had the big lockdown, so almost for 4 months, we got inside our building. We couldn't go out, and then weeks after weeks, the situation were always like worse than getting worse.
Yes, so I think it started around maybe May, June when they had Directive 15. So they recommended that people stay at home. You couldn't go to the grocery store or go shopping or anything like that, and you could only go out for non-essential goods or medical and things like that. So from that start, then we moved into Directive 16. That's when the lockdown happened, where you really had to stay put and you couldn't go out. So it just got worse and worse. And then on top of that, like you mentioned, the visa problem. A lot of foreigners were getting asked to leave Vietnam, and a lot of the visas weren't being renewed. So that was another big blow to the foreigner in Vietnam.
And finally, it pushed us to now end of the year. And you see smoothly situation is getting back to normal. You see here restaurants, bars. Now it's almost like before COVID. And then there were also a big switch that happened, I think, in the government's mindset until maybe August. They wanted to have a zero case. They wanted to aim for the zero case COVID in Vietnam. And finally in September, October, they start to realize they couldn't finally aim for that because the outbreak was there and then the vaccination was going on very well at the same time. So finally they switch their mindset to finally accept that the COVID is here and then there will be different variants, and then finally life has to start again, right?
Yeah, I think after 4 months of lockdown, the society suffered greatly. Lots of families were running into money problems. People couldn't go to work. Factories shut down. And all of the restaurants and businesses around us all closed. I think the government realized that the longer they would shut down, keep things shut down, people couldn't make a living. So on October 1st, they decided to open up the Saigon at least. And then I think part of the reason was too is more people were getting vaccinated. So we have the first and the second vaccination.
Okay, so you mentioned, Vin, about the vaccination going on quite fast in the big cities. So mostly Saigon, Hanoi, and Da Nang. This is the three biggest spots where they vaccinated very fast. And now we have about 68% of people getting at least one shot.
About that, yes.
About that,
that's right. Yep.
And then 50-something% of two jab already. So it was really one of the top things that the Vietnamese push to basically be able to catch up with the virus. Vin, I had a question about the manufacturing impact. What was it in 2021?
Boy, the COVID really devastated the manufacturing industry in Vietnam, as you know, because the plants closed and people were forbidden to work. And they tried to get around that, some companies, where they kept the employees at the factory, and that caused another big problem. So we see big delays. Lots of workers, when they were allowed to, they went back to their hometown. So that was another big problem. And then, as you know, Vietnam shut down, so they weren't able to bring in materials or supplies from China or from other countries. So big delays, big problems, so, all around.
So we got many workers leaving their hometown because there were huge lockdown inside the big cities. We got at the same time the supply chain worldwide that got also disrupted. So finally it ended up like raising the cost of the manufacturing like goods, right, in Vietnam, as well as the shipments.
Yeah, so not only was there big delays because one, we didn't have the materials, two, we didn't have the labor force, and three, there weren't enough containers, so we couldn't get product out from Vietnam to other countries. And if you notice, the shipping containers tripled, quadrupled. They used to be maybe $3,000, $4,000 US dollars to bring a container from Vietnam to California for another country. But now we were seeing pricing $20,000, $25,000 for a container, and that's if you could find one.
Wow.
So big shortage there.
So huge impact on the labor aspect as well. So many workers love their job, and as well as just on the business angle. You see all those places here. We are in one of the golden location in Ho Chi Minh City. We have just here Vitexpo, and basically those locations here were before very crowded. When you come here during the night, you have a lot of people hanging out in those locations. So obviously all those businesses struggle as well very much.
Yeah, I think locally, I don't know, maybe it seems maybe 50% of businesses went out of business. And I could understand, because if you don't have the cash flow, you're a small family business, you've got rent to pay, and you don't have the customer, you can't get the employees to help you, you can't get the supplies, the food. So even though Vietnam, Saigon is quote unquote reopened, you can look around, everything, I would say maybe 40-50% of businesses are now permanently closed. So it's devastating to the local economy.
And so it's not only the local business, it's also international players. So I did a video about this, reviewing like Starbucks and then McDonald's, and then even those shops has to close like some of them like most prestigious outlets. So it's not only the local business that got badly hit, it's also, basically the whole Vietnamese economy that has been devastating.
Yeah, I was shocked to learn that the McDonald's at the old post office closed, and then Hard Rock Cafe announced that they were closing. So yeah, these big international brands, and that if they can't survive through the pandemic, the closures, how do the small businesses are able to? So yeah, devastation across the board.
Yeah, so interesting, Vin. So as well, big impact on the Vietnamese economy, as well as also potential opportunities, right? Because every time you have chaos, it also brings its part of opportunities, right? Just businesses are dying. So if you are risk taken, you may maybe want to jump into, I don't know, buying a business or launching something with basically less cost that it could cost you if it was on a non-COVID time, right?
Yeah, that's true. If you are an investor and you were thinking about Vietnam and looking for opportunities, this might be a good time too. If you have the cash, that might be something you want to look into, whether it be an apartment building, an apartment, a small business, etc.
And now coming back of what's the situation now, basically we start to have some hope about reopen of tourism in the beginning of 2022. So plans are not yet clear in terms of visa, but the Vietnamese authorities announced that there will be and they will resume international flights from around 16 destinations, starting from the beginning of January until the end of January. So there will be basically two phases. First, all the neighbor countries having direct flights, and then in the second time, countries like France and others having direct flights to reconnect and to reopen the tourism to Vietnam. But it's maybe a little bit also early to know exactly how things gonna go, because we have Omicron going on in all Europe, in the US as well. And basically it's a risk for Vietnam economy, because we just got yesterday the news of Thailand saying that they may stop letting people enter the country without a quarantine. So things may change as well very fast. What's your ideas about that, Vin?
Yeah, I think you're right. On the positive side, the government announced that they are trying to reopen the country to tourism in January. So they're making some decisions, some moves. But as you mentioned, it's depending on Omicron, because here we are in late December, and as you know, Omicron has taken over the US and Europe, and there's already shutdowns. And so although Omicron hasn't been a problem yet in Vietnam, I think it's just a matter of time before it takes hold. So I'm guessing it could be 1 or 2 months from now where we know if Omicron is going to be a problem. So I think it's too early to tell, even though the government and businesses want to reopen. Obviously, it's yet to be decided.
Okay, yeah, interesting, Vin. So basically right now the tourism is bubble tourism. So if you want to come to Vietnam, you have to use their package tour. So it's quite pricey, and it's not really what Vietnam was known for as a place that you can, as a country that you can travel, just take your motorbike and be free all around the country. So maybe you should wait a few more months if you just want to come here for tourism. But on the business angle, like, what would be for you your prediction and thoughts about, I don't know, the rebound of the economy?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think a lot of people had high hopes that 2022 would get better. And, we had the vaccines, things started to slow down, we should get more control, society has reopened. However, with the Omicron, it's hard to say, and I have a feeling I can't confidently say things will get better economically or things will return to normal. It's really hard to say because everything's now up in the air.
And especially if you are doing manufacturing and if you are in hot sectors that were already booming before COVID, they may be still chance for you to like come to Vietnam and then start to explore business opportunities. And then you see finally you can catch up and be quite early into jumping into the rebound. What about you, Vin?
I say for 2022, you're going to have to proceed with caution. Although there's opportunities, if you have an eye on Vietnam, you might want to wait it out. I don't think things are going to be back to normal, definitely within the first 6 months at least. So I would say proceed with caution, and I don't think you would need to make plans just yet to come to Vietnam because things are still up in the air.
Okay, interesting, Vin. Hope you guys enjoy the video. Don't forget to leave us your thoughts below and your comments about what do you think about what you see here in the air in the heart of Ho Chi Minh City. Hope you enjoy the video and I see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye bye.
And I'ma get it right, then I'll sight like